Hello, everybody. Andy from Indiana Bronco Parts. So I told you last episode that I was going to be visiting some friends, some fellow Bronco guys here in Indiana. We don't get as much love in Indiana as for the Broncos. Most people don't realize they're as big as they are here in this area. So today we are here, and I'm going to switch the camera with Mike French up here in Goshen, Indiana at Goshen Bronco Heaven. And as you can tell, he's here with a couple of his awesome rides. And he has another one outside, which is a second gen that we might just take a look at too. So, Mike, we're just going to start here.
Okay.
And I'm going to put this up. We're going to just prop this right here for us. And why don't you go ahead and give us a little history of when did you get your first Bronco?
Well, to start off with, I started wheeling, probably around 77, 76, something like that. But I was a Chevy guy.
Okay.
Even though my grandparents were Ford people all their life. But I switched over. I had a couple Chevy pickup trucks. And then I bought my first Bronco, which was a 67, from a mechanic that worked at a Wakarusa Ford dealership. It was pretty beat, pretty rusty, of course, because we live in a salt belt. And I lifted it up, cut it, and did the whammy to it. Bought some Duff stuff because Duff was about the only one around doing that back then. I hadn't heard of K-Bar S till later on after I was buying Duff stuff. But yeah, it was a good time, and that's when the addiction started. I bought several after that, and just continued on buying them, selling them. Of course, nowadays with the expense of them, it's tough to buy even a piece of junk for little or nothing. So I'm happy with what I have now. I have a 66 Roadster, which I've had since 92. Had 52,000 original miles on it. Was sold at Fry Ford sales in LaGrange, Indiana, brand new. And then I have a 77 here that I wheel. It was a Ranger package. It was all bone stock when I bought it from a guy out of Pennsylvania, but of course they live in the salt belt over there. It was pretty ragged out. Got a bunch of new parts with it, but I cut it, lifted it, and I wheel it. So I have a good one for fun out on the street, and another good one for
All right.
dirt.
Well, we're going to take a closer look here at this beautiful 66 Roadster. 50 what thousand miles when you bought her?
I had 52,000 original on it.
52,000 original.
It has 71,000 on it now.
Okay, so you've had her a few years, to say the least, and you've enjoyed it. So that's what these are all about. 6-cylinder, obviously,
Right.
170 cubic inch, 103 horsepower.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
September of 65 build.
okay,
So one of
Yep.
the first.
yeah, mine was basically real close to this. It was full body top, but it was still had the sticker on the breather. It said 103 horsepower.
Yeah.
So it's kind of entertaining to imagine that was pretty awesome. Now here is my type of Bronco
Right.
because we go out and play. I've dug up a picture the other day when we were at Badlands in 2001
Right.
with a whole line of the Broncos, and that was pretty cool because I think there was 9 of us,
Yeah.
and that was very
Sounds like-
rare to have
Mhm.
that many old Broncos in
I
one
believe
place.
Mike Kirkus out of Chicago put that.
Kind of
together.
threw that together, yep, and that was a good time. I actually had what I have vapor lock issues.
Did you?
Yeah, and I really didn't get to wheel a whole lot. But once I got out there, I ended up shelling my front axle shaft anyway. So, but yeah, this here. So go over some of the modifications on this bad boy. What do you got? Like a 6-inch suspension or?
Actually, this has probably a 3.5-inch lift coils in the front. The back is completely stock.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Then some shocks I had laying around. I never bought really anything new for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's got 350 gears in it yet. I Lincoln locked the front end. Of course, it broke axle after axle after axle doing that. It does have a Jeep Eater's gears in the transfer case. They're 486 to 1. So it'll crawl real nice. Had a 302 in it. It was junk, and I put a 289 in it that I had laying around. But now I'm ready to do the whammy to it, and it's going to get all new suspension from Duff's, all new brake lines, all new brakes, RCV front axles. I'm going to put 456 gears in it, and but I'm going to pretty much leave the body the way it is. Wheel it for a couple more years, have some fun with it. Me and the wife, I'm retired now, so we're going to take this to a couple different Bronco events throughout the country, hopefully, and have some fun with it in retirement. So I have time now to work on it, which is really nice. So,
well, being retired, congratulations on that. That's real nice to be able to get to that point. But so, do you remember what you paid for this bad boy back in the day?
I paid $1,600 for this.
Okay.
From a truck driver that came into work where I worked. Had new quarters for it, new front and rear door jams for it, kick panels and all that stuff, but he couldn't find anybody to put it on there because it was so rotten. There wasn't just no place for new parts to attach to without some really major work. So he sold it to me, brought it out here, and I bought it, and I still have the new parts laying up there. Never used them, new quarters, all that stuff. But yeah, it's just it's been a lot of fun, and there's just nothing like wheeling in a Bronco, that's for sure.
Yeah. So how many Broncos do you think you've owned? Have you been like most people and lost count?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I probably had close to, I would, just a guess, between 30 and 40.
30 and 40, that's plenty.
A lot of them I parted out, because living in the Rust Belt, there wasn't much left on it but the drivetrain.
So are you pretty much like me and regretting what you've parted out? Scrapped?
I've probably thrown away more 66 parts than a fella can.
Yeah.
That a fella has. Before knowing what 66 parts were, really. So.
Well, the big thing is the popularity, the Bronco boom, as I call it, is made everything about these turn into gold, and it's an unfortunate situation for that had them for a long time. Some of these newer people that's just into them the last 3 years, they're really getting into it, and that's great, but they didn't understand what the people that's been into it for 20 plus years have gone through,
right? And
keeping them running, just getting parts or whatnot. So you do have a small business where you have Bronco parts. Could you elaborate more on that?
Well, yeah, after I got into them, after a couple, 3 years, I thought, well, you know what, maybe I should just start selling parts. So I named my place Bronco Heaven, and it's been called that ever since. And I started to really get into selling parts, selling t-shirts, all kinds of stuff that I'd made up, like this has a really nice hood on it. That I made for it, but it didn't take off, and life takes you in different directions, and so I kind of gave that up for a while, but I always kept my name, and everybody knew me.
Sure.
So
well, I think you're in the same boat as like myself and most other Bronco guys. You still work full time, you raise a family,
right?
This is a second guess type of thing that you enjoy and you have a passion for it, but to say it's going to be a business and moneymaker to where it supports your family, it just wasn't possible.
Right, exactly. But the great thing about this is, in the Bronco community on a whole, is family oriented. My wife loves this one here. She loves them both. She loves them all. I've had a great wife. She's allowed me to pursue my hobbies.
Correct.
Which is nice. Yeah. And my daughter enjoyed it. We went to Silver Lake most of the time.
That's my favorite place.
Yeah,
it really is. I love the sand. I like the mud. I like crawling, but there's nothing better than the sand. And if the people out west, they're like, "Oh yeah, I agree." They get to go in the dunes, Dumont, and they got Glamis and all that. They love that stuff. And some people are diehard crawlers, and then some of the old folks that just want to go out and play in the mud, which we've all done, and I've done that. And some of the guys out west in the mountains, they live for the snow, and it's just depends where you're at and where you're located. So
exactly.
But I got to tell you, this is it's nice to have other people that's involved in our area with the Broncos. So
it sure is, because they're far and few between around here. Most of them went by the wayside because they rusted out. But
well, between you, me, Mark Bontrager, and a couple other guys, we gobbled up what's been available.
Right.
And they've been gone for. Nowadays, you just can't buy them. Osceola, I got a call and had 5 Broncos. The town was on them because they changed the ordinance about vehicles sitting around, and I bought all 5 for $750.
Amazing.
You can't do that. And people, Barrett Jackson last night, we were discussing it. $115,000 for a Bronco. I can't see it. I can't ever. To me, I can't see ever paying that kind. I don't care if I won the lottery.
It'd be tough to drive around something that expensive.
What are you going to use it for besides just to go to a car show?
Shows.
Well, nowadays, your old clunker, your awesome roadster, my old mud racer or whatnot, they bring more attention than I took my old tow truck, 72 bump side tow truck, and people thought sitting next to a $60,000 Mustang, and I had more people take pictures of that tow truck, and
Right.
I think I don't know. What is your opinion? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
What's your opinion of this Bronco boom? Do you really like the popularity of them, or you don't really think it matters much, or you dislike it?
I'm kind of in the middle. I mean, I'm glad that people like Broncos, and it has brought a lot of attention to them. But all it's done, really, in my opinion, is it's increased the value of them, of course, but it's put it beyond a regular Joe like me who worked in the factory all their life to be able to afford one. So that's kind of a bummer. But just whatever you're into. I mean, I'm okay with it, I guess. But yeah. I mean, it has made my stuff worth a lot more, especially my Roadster. And hopefully, someday I can put a new body on this and it'll be worth a little bit more. But it's good and it's bad. So
it's there. That's the kind of the situation with everything. It's the good and the bad. Now, did you ever, in your wildest dreams, think there would be $100,000 Broncos?
No, never. That's just crazy. And it's funny, there are so many places popping up that are building those kind of Broncos, and there's that many people to afford to buy those kind of Broncos too. So
to me, it's insane to a point to think that people pay that kind of money to it.
Right.
But
hopefully it'll hold out, and then when I need to sell mine, after I go into a retirement home,
well,
I'll have some nice money to retire.
That's what the missus is. My wife's very forgiving. I mean, she has her own, and she's been around me with 140 plus Broncos since when we started dating. I was 18, she was 16, so she hasn't known any different. So she's always loved it, always hated it at the same time. I gotta go this way to look at the Bronco. Well, just like the Oso said, hey, I'm gonna go get money out of the bank and buy a Bronco, and then I dropped one off in the yard. She goes, where are you going? I go, I got 4 more to pick up. So it's just one of those things that it is 100% family oriented. The kids absolutely loved our trips to Silver Lake.
Oh yeah.
And they're getting older, and some of that stuff isn't as appealing because they got their own lives and they can drive now and so on and so forth. But you said it, that's great that they're worth a lot more, but when it comes down to it, can you really ever get rid of them?
Right.
It's going to be hard. I mean, you've had this since 92.
Yeah.
So what, 20, 21, 30, what is that, 29 years or so? 29 years, going on 30 years.
Actually, I sold this at one time to a young kid, but his dad was a Ford guy, so when I told him he shouldn't be molesting it or jacking it up or cutting it or whatever, he understood that. So he had it for 5 years, and I tried to buy it back, and they said, no, we don't want to sell it. The kid said, well, you know what, I think I'm going to move to Hawaii and take it with me. So I figured I'd never see this thing again. And 6 or 8 months later, he called me. Either him or his mom called me and said, hey, you still want to buy the Bronco? He got his girlfriend pregnant, so I was able to buy it back.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's weird how that works out.
It worked out really well, yeah. I really regretted selling it, and I'm glad I got it back. But 2 years ago, his dad came by and wanted to buy it back from me so he could restore it because he knew the values were going up on him and stuff. I shot him a price, and he said, no, I won't pay you that much.
Probably second guessing himself now.
So he bought another one to restore, and I'm sure he's soaking a lot more money into that than. what he would have into this. But
well, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
You know, and we've
I'm just
all
happy to get it back.
been through it, right? There's been times where everybody thinks of selling or they regret selling some of their Broncos or any vehicle. I mean, my dad grew up and all I ever heard was about his Barracuda.
Oh, really?
How he wish he would have kept his Barracuda and
Sure.
this and that. But family and stuff changes, and granted, you lived through the 70s with the gas crunch. It's a little different with when you're driving a big Barracuda,
Right.
and you're supposed to have a family in the vehicle.
Gotta put food on the table first.
But yeah, so this one here, so you're going to change out quite a bit. You got all kinds of parts I see in the shelves behind us and stuff. You have all kinds. So you're going to start over and do this one up to where it's a better crawler than what it already is.
Right, but be good in the sand too. So yeah, it'll be a lot more fun with new suspension and new shocks and brakes, because the brakes are junk. But the last time I took it out, I had a big event, and we went to a buddy's place and went wheeling and stuff. And they got it all. I let one of my friends from Chicago drive it, and got it all muddy and broke the axle shafts in it again, which I knew that would probably going to happen. So it's been in here since then. And that was like 15 years ago. So it's time for an upgrade. So I've been buying from all the parts places. It's got Wild Horse headers on it now, and I bought seats, brand new seats for it from Tom's Bronco Parts. I just ordered some more stuff from Jeff last night, as a matter of fact, actually for this.
Yeah.
But yeah, all the parts places are great. I mean, they've come through. They got great service. I've heard people complain on some of the parts houses that, but it just depends. I mean, I've never had a problem with any of them. They've all given me good service.
Well, it doesn't matter where
there.
you go. You're gonna sooner or later you're gonna have a bad experience somewhere.
Sure.
Yeah. There's no one that I can think of, or no place. I've gone to the same restaurant I've gone to for 20 years, and every once in a while you have a bad meal. It's just the way it goes.
It's the way it is.
And they may not handle it the greatest, but you understand that.
Sure.
And Bronco parts are no different. I've read some of the comments about this place or that, and I'm just thinking, you know what, people, you got to realize they weren't very prepared for this Bronco boom on their jobs and their end, and you can't just hire great employees.
Right.
Well, they're not out there no matter where you're at.
Right.
So cut some of these places some slack. You got to realize that they're dealing with employee crunches. They're way busier than they ever planned to be.
Ever.
Most of the places have upgraded and moved. I saw that there was a big quote unquote garage sale at the one vendor because they had to move shops because they had to get a bigger place, and they were selling a bunch of stuff. So these people, I just ordered from Jeff's yesterday. Some for a 78 Bronco that you guys saw in my video,
right,
that I'm redoing. I'm putting together with the 7.3. The body mounts off the frame horns were rusted out when I pulled the body off. And I ordered them, and that's just how it does. But the used part business, myself included in that, it's pretty much non-existent in the throwaway society nowadays, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. I haven't sold very many used parts. I have lately, or a couple parts that I had laying around. Somebody needed some stuff, but yeah, I don't. Well, you can't buy them to part them out anymore to be able to sell used parts. So
No.
I'm pretty much out of that.
I used to send steering boxes to Palomar Mountain and Gardenia.
Oh yeah.
And as soon as I could get them, I'd call the guy. He'd ship them, pay for shipping, and I'd sell them that day. And
oh yeah.
now they just buy a new one. And nobody rebuilds anything and this and that, so it makes it kind of difficult. But
it does. And getting back to the vendors and that kind of stuff, I think the biggest complaint I hear nowadays online is that they've had their stuff on order, and of course it's back ordered because they're all so busy. People are buying Broncos so much and upfitting them that they can't keep up. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, if you go to a regular auto parts store, there's a lot of stuff that's not in stock anymore.
Right.
This pandemic, COVID stuff has slowed everything down up to a point that they have to take that consideration too. So cut our guys some slack over there at Wild Horses, Tom's, Jeff's, down at James Duff. You mentioned K-Bar S. I was looking at my sign. I have a old Ford sign in my garage that I'm going to take off the wall and move it into my shop now. And it's got the K-Bar S sticker and the old James Duff where his head's huge with the big cowboy hat.
Right.
And us dated guys, we know those things because we've been, involved with the vehicles for, close to 30 years.
Yeah.
You've definitely got 30 years in on it. And some of these newer guys are like, "What's K-Bar S?" And they just had a nice. Have you ever tuned into their? They have a podcast where a bunch of Bronco stuff out west.
Right.
And they
Yeah.
do that. And they just had the guys from K-Bar S was one of the shows.
Todd Zurcher did that.
And Todd did it with them, and it was a very good show. I
didn't get to see that.
It's just a podcast. It's just when I listen to it, I listen to it on my phone while I'm driving. I just have it playing through my speakers.
Oh.
And it just talks about some of the good stuff, how they raced back in the day and this and that. So, so if we could, I don't know, can you pop the garage door and we can go out and take a look at this 78?
Sure.
I love this Bronco here, so we're going to go out. And we've got a little bit of sunshine. It's kind of cold here. Indiana, it's rainy again, and it's quit, though. But the temperature's dropped a little bit. But for the guys who love the second gens, which I think everybody does, we have this beautiful Bronco. Got the plow on the front. So our buddies out there in Montana Broncos, they would love this because it's got the stripes. Right. So chromatic stripes on it. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, this is actually a one-owner truck bought new here in Goshen, Indiana. An insurance guy bought it, and he put the plow on it right away. And he actually took it to Turtle Top, which is a van conversion company here in town, and had the interior converted. Supposedly he bought it without any interior in it, and then took it out there and had the interior converted. So it's got some shag going on in the inside, some black diamond tuck stuff, seats and side panels on it, but it's all real clean on the inside yet. He took pretty good care of it. It's got some rust on it, but it's not bad for what it is.
Well, most people didn't realize, but you could actually order the Broncos without interior. And it wasn't considered an option, but if you told them that you didn't want an interior, you could actually order it that way from factory, which was an odd deal. Most people obviously wanted seats, but
yeah.
So
I've had my eye on this thing for probably the last 25 years, knowing that he had it. And he stored it at his shop all the time. I finally got a hold of him a couple of years ago. He said, "Nah, I really don't want to sell it." Then he called me and said, "Well, I'm thinking about it, but this is what I want." And I said, "Nah, I don't want to pay that much for it." But he knew what he had.
Yeah.
Then he called me again and said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll let it go for this amount if you really want it." And I said, "Yeah, I'll take it." So
all right.
I just bought it last year in November. Of course, I posted it online, pictures of it and stuff, and then I got a lot of flack for having a plow on it, but the plow was on it. So, and then plowing with it this winter, but I only plowed a couple times, and it never saw a salt, so it was just here in my driveway. So. But I've got right away. I've got 3 or 4 people lined up that want to buy it, so I'm probably going to let it go here in the next month or two. I really don't need 3 Broncos, but it's been fun having it. So.
Everybody needs 3 Broncos. Don't let my wife watch this one because I have 7 at the house right now. So, well, I tell you what. So we're gonna go back in because it's a little bit chilly out here. But there's nothing better than walking past a beautiful second gen, and then just by the way, there's a couple first gens in here, and I tell you what, it's kind of a nice view to have here.
It's actually about my 3rd second gen that I've had.
Yeah.
I enjoy them all. So I'd really like to have a newer one, like a 95 or 96.
Well, they're out there. So here's where you make all the magic happen.
This is it. This is why we bought this house, because it had a second garage.
Yeah, this is...
It was a little taller, so I had a lift, but we're hoping to build a barn dominium, and so it'll have a nice lift in it.
Yeah.
I have to crawl around on the floor anymore. So.
Well, it's never an easy job, especially when you get to an older age. Not that you're old or that I'm that old, sure. But you definitely feel it compared to when you were in your 20s. So,
right.
But well, I got to tell you, it's been really good catching up, and it's always great to see another Bronco enthusiast, to say the least.
Same here. There are far and few between here in northern Indiana.
Yeah, we got a few guys here in Michigan, just across the border, and then here in Indiana. But when it comes down to it, we are few and far between. So
Coming over, Andy. I really appreciate you.
yeah, well,
And
I gotta say, right there's the camera. I gotta say, it's been real good to be here, and I appreciate everything you're doing to keep the Broncos going, and it's been fantastic.
right.
All right, so for Indiana Bronco Parts and Goshen Bronco Heaven, we want to say goodbye, and we'll see you next video.
Keep broncoing.
There you go.